All right, so this is where we left off last time is on, I think we called this Barney Skittles. Now I added these things in here afterwards. These are very similar to those accent pieces. Instead of just having the one thing that animates, you can add accents to it. These little things that just make it look a little bit fancier, a little bit more graphic and design to it, right? A little bit more fun. These are not textbooks for 5th grade history. These are animations. These are motion graphics things. We need to put fun into our animation so people want to watch them. If nobody wants to watch them, then why are we even creating them, okay? So this makes it look more fun having those lines on top. So that's what I added there. What is this one here? That's that one, okay. Now this one I'm going to show as another one that I did, just so you can see how it's done. I'm going to turn motion blur off so it goes quicker, okay? So this one is just a color wheel that scales up, spins around, and then is gone. So the way that you might attack something like this is by creating one wedge, giving it a color, and then animating it, scaling up, and then rotating around, and then scaling back down. Correct? Okay. Now, when you get to the second one, how would you animate that second one? Because you duplicate it. If you rotate it, it's going to rotate, but it's not going to offset. It's not going to rotate the entire thing around, right? Because you've already animated the rotation, so it wouldn't work. Now watch how cool this one is. I have one piece down here. Watch as I duplicate this. One more. There we go. And now my animation is all synced up. And now watch one more step. I'm going to go here to this thing, say 0 and 3, shift them. Rewind, play. Okay, now a couple things here. We haven't gone over this, but this is just something that eventually you will get into if you start playing with, if you dedicate yourself to After Effects and really learning the software more and more and more. So one of the things that I added to this was I added an expression. Before I showed how we can parent things, I have this item and that item. I want these things to move together, so I can parent those two things together so that they're always linked. You can do another thing which is called an expression, which allows you basically just to take an attribute and link it to information that it's getting, okay? So basically I'm telling this layer here that I want you to pick a hue based on the layer number times 18. Okay, so basically our wheel has 360 degrees on it. I need 18 pieces, so I've divided it into basically 18 different wedges. So I'm saying, okay, let's say your color is 0. You're going to be 0 times 18, so that'll be 0. And then if you're layer 1, you'll be times 18, so you'll be 18, and so on. And so what this does is every time I duplicate this, layer 1 stays at 18, and then when I duplicate it again, let me go to another area where I can see it. This one gets the next 18, and then when I duplicate it again, that one gets the next 18. When I duplicate it again, that gets the next 18. Okay? So every time it's iterating, it's scooting that hue over another 18 degrees. Now the other thing that I did was I also did that to the rotation. Okay? Whenever we use a shape layer, under here, under ellipse, we have this transform way up here, which is just that shapes transform, and then we have the whole layers transform way down here. So I animated it through this transform, but I offset it with this transform, okay? Now this is way beyond something that we're going over right now, but I just want you to see that. I just want you to see that eventually we'll get to this point of understanding this stuff more. This whole thing that we're doing is all building to something. As far as setting keyframes, setting things up, pre-composing, picking the right colors, all of this goes somewhere. So in this next level class of After Effects, these are the kinds of assignments that they do. This is not like 3 years of After Effects, this is after this class, this is the next class you would take. This is what they're doing in that class. They're building a character, rigging the character, and animating the character. And here's them doing the initial construction of it. And then here's them planning out how all the pieces are going to move. Now, part of this is being able to draw in Illustrator. That's why in this class, I want you to use Illustrator for your assignments. Eventually, we'll get more and more and more into Illustrator. That will not go away. If you don't care about that, then fine, don't care about it, but your assignments, your work, your abilities, everything, your time and effort will all reflect that you don't care about that, okay? You can't just jump into this, expect to create this, without going through all the crap ahead of time, all right? So that's where you would take the next class assignments, is doing that. Let's go to this one. All right, here's another one where they're doing another rigging thing. This one is the example of what they're going to be building into that assignment. Okay, After Effects is a huge program. People use it for all sorts of different things. Simple things, crazy things. You'll see here, even they're starting with just some basic shapes and going through different things you can do with that. Okay, so all of the stuff that you're learning here will carry into that. All the stuff you're learning every step of the way will carry into it. The more grounded you are in understanding it, the more you'll be able to do later on. And sometimes it will mean redoing something over and over and over again. As a tangent, all right, so all this stuff builds somewhere, that's the point of it, right? I want to show another technique just so you can see another technique inside here, just for different ways you can animate stuff. And then I'm going to get into how we're going to package it and then turn it in. So one of the things I wanted to show, D drive, there, 1900 AM, page transitions, artwork. All right, so I downloaded 3 different images here. That's not a thumbnail. I guess I don't have thumbnails in here. Anyway, this is what those images look like, this. So there's 3 of them that look, this red one, this blue one, and this other red one, okay? Those are just pictures that I downloaded. I'm going to use those instead of a solid and instead of a shape layer. You can do stuff like that as well, okay? Anyone ever watched Home Improvement? Yeah. Right? The transitions that they did from one cut to the next cut, that's what we're doing essentially with all of these, just figuring out how do we get from one shot to the next. They would take a single frame in the movie or in the show, they would cut out each asset and they would animate each asset separately. That way you can see, like, here's the neighbor's fence. What's his name? Was it? Wilson, thank you. And then his fence would drop out, and then Wilson would fly here, and then all the other stuff would kind of build on top, okay? So very similar technique. I'm just going to grab these images, drop them in artwork, because that's what they are. And then I'm going to make a new composition. How did that get so crazy? 960 by 540, 30 frames per second, and 2 seconds. I will also rename this, and I will call this texture transition. Make sure my stuff stays organized every second of the day. There we go. All right. So then just drop these in. So anytime we import, we just double click, just like you did your audio, grab the stuff, and then you organize it, then you just drop it into the comp. It's that simple. Every time we animate something or we bring something in or anything, really be aware of how you're scaling stuff. I've said it before, but I'm just going to keep saying it so that we get it locked in. We never want to grab these because it distorts our stuff. I don't care how much you don't think it's distorted, okay? You may not see it, but I see it. You always want to grab these manipulators and shrink these to the correct size, okay? Also, you can scale up these images, but just be aware that the more you scale it up, the grainier it's going to get and the more disgusting it's going to get. So if I scaled it up this big, that looks gross. I would never use that for anything. I can't imagine an instance where I would use something like that. Maybe if I was scaling it fast enough that they wouldn't see that it's blurry and I had motion blur on, maybe. All right, I'm going to leave it at 100. And I'm just going to use these as my transition pieces. So I'm going to put this here. I'm going to grab this one and put it there. And if I need assistance, I'm going to go here. I need my proportions grid. This is already laid out. You see the lines here? I can basically divide this into thirds. So I'm going to scoot this down so that's even right there. That's cool, that's cool, that's cool. Everything's even, cool. Maybe I don't want it even, do I? Let's see, what does that look like if I put this here and I put this one here? Yeah, that's cool, I like that. All right, so I'm going to take these and I'm just going to animate these just coming onto the screen. Just nothing different than we've done, just coming on, going off. One thing I can do that would be different, if I right-click on these, I can separate the dimensions, okay? If I separate them, I can focus on just the X or just the Y. And that way I don't have to set 2 keyframes every time. Separate, separate, okay. I'm going to separate or animate just the X position. And I'm going to animate this one backwards. These are already set up where I want them, so I'm setting my keyframes, and I'm just going to move the keyframes down to where they should be, okay? And instead of going to frame 0 and pushing everything off the screen, going to frame, let's say, 15, putting everything back, I'm just going to set the key here and move it down to where I think it's going to be anyway, okay? And then I'm just going to scoot everything off. So this will go this way, this will go that way, this will go that way. And there they go, gorgeous. I'll scoot up a little bit. Let's say I scoot up 5 frames. I'm just going to set my diamond. Scoot up that many frames and just keep moving them. So this is going to go that way. These two will go this way. I do my easy ease. I do my speed graph. Make sure it's on speed graph. And I think I'm going to go like this. That's cool. And then I'm just going to offset it just a little bit. This one and this one. Because they're kind of symmetrical, vertically symmetrical. Maybe a little bit more. Oops. I grabbed the wrong one. That's blue. I wanted this one. There we go. Okay. Now, as far as the assignment goes, that's done. It starts off with nothing on the screen. It fills the screen for at least 1 frame, and then it goes off the screen. Aesthetically, it works too. It's fast in, it gets to the point, and then it gets out. Okay? It doesn't linger there and hang out. If I were to remove, let's say, these keyframes, let's say I just remove these keyframes too. There we go, just move both of them. Okay, so technically this is a transition. It does go from one piece to the next, but we don't get that stopping point. I'm not saying we always have to have a stopping point, but we should be in control of our keyframes, and if they don't look like they're in control, it's usually pretty obvious. Usually stuff starts floating around or moving back and forth, so that's something that we don't want. So this definitely does work for the assignment. It's off, it's covered at least 1 frame, and then it goes off again, okay? So that definitely works. Now I'm going to add one more thing to this, which is on these two, I'm going to add the layer styles and drop shadow. I'm going to turn off my grid too, because that's like too much to see. Open up my drop shadow, make the size a bit bigger. I'm going to change the angle as well. I think 0 would probably be good. Size up some more. There we go. And then I just want to make sure that the other one has the same settings. 95, yes. Okay, because I had them both selected, it did them both at the same time. If you ever have 10 layers or 2 layers, you can always delete the one, copy it, and then just paste it, and those settings will transfer to the other one. Cool. Okay. So that's just a new thing that you can add to this. Again, make sure when you do motion blur, you turn motion blur on here and you turn motion blur on there. All right, so now this one is my final one, so I'm going to go to textures, transition, and put the word final at the end of it. All right, so now my next step in this, now I'm ready to actually like turn this thing in, or I'm ready to get it ready to turn in. I need to go to each one of my transitions and crop them so that's only the transition there. If I hit play, what happens after the transition's done? It replays, but what happens like between the replay, like here? Nothing, right? It's just a blackness. In some cases, we may want that. We don't in this case, okay? So I want to go to where this is done, right there. I'm going to go, let's say, a frame after it, and I'm going to use the end key. What does the end key do? End of the work area, thank you. And then we're going to go to composition and trim the work area so that it fits perfectly in there. And I'm going to do that to each one of these. Oops, let me reduplicate this one. One more, there we go. That's the end of it. Go another frame, that's the end of it. Go one more frame up, hit the end key, trim comp to work area. And if you remember the hotkey from that, you can see it's just Control-Shift-X. Okay, N, Control-Shift-X. N, Control-Shift-X. The end of that one, Control-Shift-X. There's the end. Okay, so that's all of those locked in. I think I got all of them. All right. So now I'm going to save this. I'm going to verify that motion blur is on all of these too. So I'm going to go into each of these. I'm not just going to look at it and say, yes, motion blur is checked. I want to visibly see motion blur on here. Okay, so as I move this, let me turn my transparency off. As I move this, I should see some blurriness happening, and I do. That's the bubble pop. That is not one of our transitions. That's just used for a transition. This one has motion blur on it. This one has motion blur on it. Rainbow does not. I turned that off, so I'll turn that back on. There's actually a pretty cool frame. Like, that's pretty banded. But like right there-ish, it actually blends in really nice. Same thing here. Motion blur is on there. Cool. So I'm going to save it again. And then I need to bring in my title card. Before I do, I'm going to make sure that I fix it. So I'm going to go to my title card. Nope, that's not mine. There. Title card. What do I call my title card? Can't be. All right, I'm going to go to my other class title card because I don't know what happened to my other title card. That's not my title card either. All right, so this is my title card. So I want to make sure that any folders that are empty over here, I just want to delete. So my audio is not empty. I'm going to leave that. My artwork is, so I'm going to delete that. My compositions is not empty. My movies is empty. My sequences are empty. My solids are empty. My other solids are not empty. My stills are not are empty. I did get this. There's a little color bar. It might be hard to see. That means that it lost a file that I had. One of my audio files just is missing. If I right-click, replace the footage file, and I go and find it, title card, audio, destroying everything. P card. This is what happens when you clean out your hard drive. You just delete everything you don't need. You don't think you need. Sarcona, audio. Nope. All right. I'll have to figure out what happened to that. I don't even think I used that one, did I? No, I just used the popping anyway, so I don't need the punching one. You can also check too. If you click on a piece, it'll tell you how many times it's used. That way, if you're like, did I use this piece of audio anywhere? It'll say you have used it. Okay. So this is a cleaned up version of my file. I'm going to save this as into my correct title card folder. P drive. Yes. AM title card. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to reopen my other file, my transitions. That's not the right transitions either. 1900 AM transitions. There we go. And then I'm just going to import that whole project. So I go to import file, I go to find my title card, I go to import my title card, leave this as project, that's fine. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring that whole project folder into this one, okay? Now this is incredibly useful for bringing projects together, especially if you do these page transitions or use these page transitions for other things, which we will. We'll be bringing these page transitions into other assignments and using those to transition between all the other pieces. So here's my regular folders. These are all the folders that were already inside here. This is the new one. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to open up the compositions. Oops. Come on. And I have title card edit and I have title card final. Remember I showed my title card final was my title card with some effects that I added on top of it, like the vignette and blah, blah, blah. The edit one is the one that has the material where I can go in there and actually type stuff out. That's what I need to do. I need to change 01 to 02, and I need to change my title card word, if it'll let me, to page transitions. Now this is where I was talking about when we did those originally, making sure that all the animation still works. It might not. 01, you see, fit perfectly where that line was. 02 is now on top of the line. So I need to adjust that. Any adjustments you make should be small. And no one's going to tell me that it says transitions. There we go, transitions. I am also going to take this size down maybe to like 75. I think that'd be fine. Okay, make sure the animation comes in. Sarcona, that's fine. Page transitions. And then the 02 I need to adjust. So I'm going to go hit the U key to get to my keys, go to where this key is, and I'm just going to nudge it over, okay? If I nudge this over right here, then this keyframe also needs to get nudged over. So I'm going to go scoot this over. That looks good. I'm going to copy this keyframe, go to that keyframe. See, I get this little like wiggle in here now. That's bad. I'm going to just paste on top of it. And there it is. And then I will verify that everything looks good. The 02 isn't doing any shaking. It just comes in, does its thing, and gets out. Okay. Now I could have also opted, instead of my page transitions to be like this, I could have also, in this design, gone like that. There's nothing wrong with either of those. As long as my animations still work, it goes in, comes out, yes, that works. There you go. Actually, I can make that a little bit bigger now, back to 82. Okay, spelling is good, okay. So my page transition, my title card works. So now I need to take my title card and each one of my transitions and bring them into one composition, okay? This process is not difficult. You just have to make sure you click the right stuff. I want my title card, which is right there, and I'm going to control click each one of my transitions that are finals. That's why we call them final. We can see their name. It's easy to grab which ones are which. If we drag this onto our new composition, it makes a single composition. It says use dimensions from. All the dimensions should be the same. All of these are 960 by 540, so that shouldn't be a difference. I'm also going to hit sequence layers. This will take the first one that I clicked, which is title card, and put it at the start of it, and then it'll automatically sequence each one of these things out right after it. So as long as I've done the steps correctly, this part should be a breeze. I don't want overlap because I want these to be cut after each one, and then I'm going to hit OK. So now if I hit play, there's my page transition title card, which goes away. And then there's my page transition, then it goes away. There's the next page transition, which then goes away. Yes. And then here's my next one. You'd want to play this. I'm not going to play through the whole thing. Verify that everything works. It does. Cool. I don't have any black space at the end of it. And then I would do that same process of exporting this to media encoder, saving it into my folder, copying it to the correct areas. Now, if you don't do this the right way, this is how it's going to end up. I'll just do it like people do. They just make a new composition, they ignore everything that I've said, and they make this like a crazy number, and then they just start dropping stuff in here. There we go, like this. Okay, then they say, my stuff isn't here. And I say, well, you have like, what's it, 3 hours I think I have. Okay, so then we'll get realistic and say, okay, we need to resize the composition settings. Yep, 3 hours. So let's go to, I don't know how long this is going to be because it's, you know, not a specific time. So I'm going to go to, not 1 hour. No, it's 1 minute, yeah, okay. 1 minute. I can see all my stuff. And then all I'm going to do is just go one after the other and just drop in the next one. There's that one. There's that one. I'm just holding Control or Shift. Oops. Oh my God. I clicked the wrong button there. There we go. Control to deselect, Shift to grab the next one. There we go. And so now I essentially just created what it created, one right after the other. Boom, boom, boom. I also have an extra one in here that I shouldn't have, which is this bubble pop. That's not a transition. That's just something I used. But because I wasn't paying attention, I grabbed the wrong thing. I grab these again. I scoot these down. Media encoder opens in the middle of me doing that. There we go. And then I have a bunch of black space at the end. I don't want that. So I will go here, trim my comp to the work area. That fits perfectly, and I basically have the exact same thing that I just had, okay? This is 14 seconds. That's how long it ended up being. I believe my other one here, yep, 14 seconds, 14:01 actually. Okay, so if you want to do it the right way, then do it the right way. If you want to do it the wrong way, then there's the directions for that as well. Yes. All right, so this comes in. We want to save this as H.264. I had some other stuff I was using, so it defaulted to TIFF. So I'm going to leave this as H.264. I'm going to put this inside of my output. Output, not movies, output. Another thing people did. Sarcona title card. Nope. Correct me when I'm wrong. This is page transitions. There we go. And then we hit play, and then it'll go, okay? It's going to take longer because it's longer. 14 seconds is longer than 5 seconds or 6 seconds we did before. So I'm not going to do that right now. Once you're done, everything is saved, everything is situated, everything is cool. 1900 AM, there we go. Page transitions. You're going to turn in your page transitions folder. Do not turn in your entire page transitions folder. I don't want everything that's in this page transitions folder. After Effects will create these 2 folders. I don't need those. Delete them. If there's anything in artwork that's not important, don't put it there. Your audio, if you have audio, that should be in there. So you may need to copy stuff from your title card. When I look at your After Effects, I'm not concerned with the audio that's inside it. I'm literally looking for, is it organized here? Did you use the right keyframes? Is it readable? Is it the way that it should be? So if you don't have the audio, that's not a huge deal breaker. There's nothing in movies, that's fine. Output should have my movie in there. I didn't actually hit render. Reference doesn't have anything in there at the moment. There's my page transitions. If you have 50 versions, delete the 49 versions, just give me the last one, okay? As the client, I'm very impatient. I want to get exactly what I need. I go to Outputs, I get the movie, I go to this file, I double click it, it opens in After Effects, I can see your stuff, okay? I don't want to have to dig through a whole bunch of things. Also, I'm limited on disk space. For instance, this is our 2 grade winter 2019. There we go. So this is 3 assignments being turned in. Already I'm almost at a gig. This is last winter's turn-in. 53 gigabytes of stuff turned in. Okay, so the least amount of crap I can get in these folders, the most appreciated and happy I'll be when I do grade. Okay, questions on that part? Yes, ma'am. It's a good question. You physically can do that, okay? That is a possibility. Render it out as a movie and drop it in there. Just like everything that we compress, it loses quality. Okay, so when we take our movie and we save it to an MP4, we've lost some quality. Then we drop it back in here and we render it out again. What's going to happen again? Lose more quality, right? So if you do it once, that's fine. I probably wouldn't notice a huge difference. But if you do it again and again and again, you're going to notice a huge dip in quality, okay? If you, obviously we've never done this before, that's fine. Do this a few times, you'll get used to this method of doing that. Why do I have a sequence called comp1? Oh, that's my crazy one that I just did. Let's delete that. There we go. And then there's my final one. That should go into my compositions and all that. Okay? You'll turn in your assignment sheet. You'll turn in your thumbnails that you drew of all the different transitions that you would have. Staple them together. Make sure your name's on it. Put it in the folder. Cool? Any other questions? All right.